Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome to our session.
Hi guys.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear it. So we're here to tell you about our safe story at Easterseals Bay Area. So sit right back and you'll hear a tale. Finish it for me. There we go. We got somebody's awake. All right, thank you.
It's after lunch, you know.
That's fair.
People are sleeping.
So what are we going to tell them about, Trista?
So we're going to talk about kind of the pros and cons to a phased incremental approach, which is what we ended up taking at Easterseals. We're going to talk about how we support and encourage the lean, agile, and everyone's favorite word this week, I'm sure, mindset. If you haven't heard it enough this week, you're going to hear it just a little bit more today, because it is very important. And then how we facilitate successful collaboration by focusing on shared values, outcomes, and integrating with the way the business has been doing work versus kind of shoving our processes down their throats, so to speak. And Jeff is about to talk to us about who Easterseals is, and then we're going to talk to you a little bit about why it says Zolve on these slides instead of Easterseals. So bear with us just a second. We're going to show you a video, and a little bit about who Easterseals is, who we serve, and why it's important.
100% capable.
Confident.
Included.
Empowered.
100% you.
As lucky as you are.
Easterseals celebrates its 100-year anniversary of helping people reach their full potential. We provide therapies and resources to help children achieve crucial milestones. We ensure quality care for seniors, support and encourage caregivers, and help veterans and people with disabilities experience the pride of employment. As champions of equal rights, we change the way the world views disability by nurturing the possibilities within us all. After 100 years, we're just getting started. Join the celebration at Easterseals.com/100.
Well, pretty inspiring, isn't it? You know what keeps us going. Okay, so as Trista said, you came here expecting to see Easterseals. What's this Zolve thing? Well, we're actually from the Bay Area affiliate, former Easterseals Bay Area affiliate. In case you know, Easterseals is actually broken up into 73 national affiliates, across the country. And we recently have been going through a major transformation and have broken out into a family of companies. So our affiliate is broken out, all under the umbrella of the single mission to responsibly disrupt and transform home and center-based healthcare. We deal primarily in developmental disability, but there are other things, occupational therapy and so on, that we do. Our part, the Zolve part, is the technology and IT division. We supply all of the technology infrastructure applications, application development to the clinical side, so our Easterseals Northern California. Now we've expanded by 23 counties out into Sacramento, away from the Bay Area. And Easterseals Hawaii has joined our, so the Hawaii affiliate is part of our family of companies moving forward.
So our family of companies, the video talked a lot about who we serve, just to kind of throw some numbers and some additional information at you. So our clients and families, one of the big things we do is work with people with developmental disabilities. We have an ABA applied, I just lost it, sorry. We do ABA group and one-on-one sessions with individuals to develop skills that they need in the real world to make sure that they're going to be able to be successful in our society. We develop social skills. We do early intervention programs with the youngsters, make sure that they develop also those skills that are going to help them grow, thrive in school, and once they become adults. We also provide occupational therapy and speech therapy to those individuals with the developmental disabilities.
Yep. And on the other side, we also support a very large provider network. In our world, a provider is actually a company, another company that has behavioral interventionists that perform therapy. So we actually have a network built up of about 95 other provider companies, in the Bay Area and Hawaii. That translates to about 1,000 active practitioners out there helping children and adults. We have a monthly census of about 7,500 clients. in the system on a sustained basis, which comes out to about 1 million managed treatments a year. And this is a predominantly mobile workforce. These people are going into homes, they're going into communities and schools, and primarily giving therapy there. So really so if we think about now who we serve, the technology side of it, we're actually out there supporting about 95,000 clinical appointments a month, and we're performing revenue cycle management on about 25,000 claims a week. So a lot of technology demand and infrastructure there.
Yeah, and our technology services, we also support our employees. We have about 1,200 employees, so that's both within the IT organization and our whole family of companies. That's us also providing the technology platforms that allow us to reimburse 80,000 miles. So that's our behavioral interventionalists that are going out to people's homes, providing those services. Without our IT team, we would not be able to reimburse that mileage. Those services would not be able to be provided. We also have 5,000 expense reports on average a year that are reimbursed through the services we're providing. 1,000 positions recruited. That's, again, across the family of companies. That's our service BIs, that's our IT staff, that's HR, that's across the board. And then 15,000 trainings on average. So we're really true believers in continuous learning, continuous education, making sure that people have the knowledge that they need to be able to provide those services. We're also HIPAA compliant, so we are under that. We are healthcare, so we have to make sure that all of our solutions are HIPAA compliant, and that's our security and privacy infrastructure as a whole.
So basically the way we've broken ourselves down, we have the value streams defined. So we have value streams that cover our clinical operations and our clinical practices. So clinical operations are about the back office part, case management, revenue cycle management, those types of things. Clinical practice are about actually defining and managing treatment, for the clients. We have a set of enterprise applications. Those are our business systems, HR IT, financial IT, all of those good things that keep the lights on and keep things flowing. We do have a content management value stream. We do have web-based content, websites, and we also manage Jira and Confluence systems internally that we provide those services to the business. And then lastly, our infrastructure and operations value stream, which does all of our network, cloud computing, security, and then provides all of the application platforms for the other value streams as well.
So where did we begin? We told you we're going to tell you our story. We've told you who we are. Now here's how we actually started. So nonprofit is different when people think about it from a typical, Silicon Valley company, because it's usually implied, people think that it's about breaking even. It's not necessarily about making a buck. It's not about that. It's about the value that we're providing our customers, that we're providing our patients. It's very much focused on our mission and not necessarily the dollar. Technology is typically an afterthought. Really, again, it's about the clinical services we're providing. People will be happy providing those clinical services even if it's on pen and paper. So technology comes after the fact. Our clinical mission over the business, and then there's budget constraints. We don't have just an overwhelming pot of money that we get to pull from. It's very much things that are donated, and so we're based very heavily on constraining our budget. So that's kind of our business side and how it's a little bit of a different environment that we're working in. As far as our teams, as most of you, I'm sure, face, we have geographically dispersed teams, very much so. We've got Ukraine, Vietnam, and then we're kind of scattered throughout the US. We have Scrum-ish, kind of sort of Scrum. We had our development teams that were doing a form of Scrum-ish, and then we started doing Scrum within our infrastructure and operations and various other teams. Our in-house teams really weren't at the beginning following processes. It was a little bit of all over the place. We had a high lack of dependency identification. Those things were getting lobbed over the fence at the last second, right as we're going out to release something. It's, uh-oh, we forgot to do the security review. Uh-oh. So that was common all the time, without fail. The teams themselves were facing the tyranny of the urgent. again, no priorities means everything's a priority. Everything was urgent. We need it done yesterday. Please do it now. And ad hoc requests. So we were facing the fact that we're working out of Jira, and these ad hoc requests, these dependencies, they were just coming in via Jira tickets. People were assigning them to other people, and we were just going in and just doing it. Just getting it done, whatever it took. There was no triage, there was no oversight, there was no real, is this really what we should be working right now? So that's kind of the initial part where the teams were, how the business was.
Yeah. So on top of that, when we actually really kind of went to get started, we actually faced a couple of very initial obstacles. Someone had actually attempted to start a safe and agile, movement a little bit before us. It ended up being very much of a false start. The person that did it wasn't actually trained at all. They'd read a couple of books, they had a relative who had done it, said, hey, that's for me, and decided to get going. They kind of came at the business with a lot of terms instead of the, yes, that word, mindset and behavior. And quite frankly, a lot of the terms and so on started becoming tools for critiquing each other rather than for driving collaborative improvement and collaborative engagement. So people kind of got sick of hearing it. They kind of got sick of getting beat with it, arbitrarily. There was no real executive buy-in or leading coalition. Cotter would have been turning over in his grave if he was dead, but he's not, thank goodness.
We all looked a little like Grumpy Cat up there.
Exactly. And then on top of that, the organization had just gone through a big technology rollout. They started replacing a lot of paper with initial versions of toolings and systems. And unfortunately, that wasn't actually pulled by the business. That was forced on them by the technology team, actually by the same people that kind of were beating them with safe stuff too. So we faced a lot of kind of initial resentment, and cynicism and all the great stuff you just love to start a transformation with.
We also had no future roadmap. Again, it goes back to the everything was urgent. So we were kind of walking blindfolded into this lovely chasm. And then there was no real sense of what's next. It was no real vision, just kind of what's new today. What do we want to look at?
The ticket du jour.
Yeah, the ticket du jour. No established processes for defining or prioritizing the portfolio from the business. We would talk to the business, but there was no real process in place. And then we had some lackluster or lack of tooling to actually help us get these things up and running.
Sounds like a great place to start, doesn't it?
I'm sure we've all been
Who wants to
there.
come play? Yeah. So our vision, we knew right off the bat we wanted to do SAFE. I mean, we knew from the beginning SAFE was the answer. I mean, the way that it was structured, the way that the layers work together. But you don't do SAFE to do SAFE. You do SAFE to get certain outcomes. So obviously we wanted to drive that business partnership, to really establish the portfolio, establish that line of sight to the horizon for the organization. We wanted to make sure that we were really instilling the cross-team and cross-departmental collaboration. So a lot of the dependencies and things like that weren't just getting lobbed over the fence. They were actually having real conversations about this stuff.
Yeah, because we had a lot of walls, physical, literal walls, and then the invisible ones that people kind of create themselves, the silo effect, right? And we really wanted to make sure that we had that collaboration built in because it was starting to demoralize the teams. They were kind of in this, I don't actually know what to do state. So we wanted to transform that level of chaos that everyone was feeling, that chaos that just gets under your skin and makes you stay up at night, into something that was actually more focused and that could actually lead towards us having major accomplishments that we would feel good about and we can go home and sleep well at night. We wanted the teams to have that spirit of success and that they're delivering really good quality things that are benefiting those people that we're supporting. And we wanted to have a plan, but let's face it, we also want to be able to deal with real life because we all know things happen. There are other terms for that, but things happen, right? We wanted to be able to address those things as they came up and kind of hit us in the face. So did everyone get dessert? If not, I'm happy to make your mouth drool for a little while. We got some cake here for you. So other than this being a glorious looking cake, it holds a purpose for us. So the way that we went about applying SAFE was taking an incremental order. We did it kind of by building layers without really telling the teams so much what we were doing. We were doing things, but not necessarily putting a hard name to what we were doing. So this cake, with all of its fun layers, represents how we went about this. And Jeff is going to talk more in detail, but really it was about establishing foundations. So at the bottom, we have our lean agile leadership. That was really the foundation we wanted to start with. Then we built our lean agile principles, the real teams, agile teams and trains, not just going through the motions, but really understanding what they were doing. Establishing a good cadence and synchronization. We weren't synchronized or on a cadence at all before. So we wanted to establish that across the organization, at least the IT side of the organization. And we wanted to establish DevOps and releasability. Architectural runway, we're still working on that, but we've at least got the groundwork going for us. PI planning, we all know the importance of that. If we want the teams to have that cross-collaboration, that's a very good way to do it.
That's where the Band-Aid came off.
Oh, rip that sucker off. And then we were into IP iterations, inspect and adapts, and system demos along with PI planning. So Jeff's going to go into a little bit more detail about these for you guys. Sorry, no more cake. I ate it.
So we had a strategy for building our cake. Naturally, we started with, say it for me,
Mindset.
Yeah, that was one. So we started with the mindset. We really wanted people to not just hear the words, not just see the mechanics, but we really wanted to understand the principles. Because once you create the principles, you start to create that sustainable, thought pattern, that carries them through, not necessarily fully understanding why I'm doing something, but they at least have the mindset behind it. And for us, and this was kind of unique, to a lot of safe implementations. A lot of safe implementations say start with the teams. Well, we had some teams that were kind of going, but given the tyranny of the urgent, the fact we had no relationship with the business, we started with portfolio first. We wanted to get control of that interface with the rest of the business first. Get some prioritization in place, start building the backlogs, get the roadmaps established with the business, find a way to triage and manage, the incoming requests by putting our Kanban funnel, we call it the funnel, in place, in our business. And got the business bought into that, very, very early. We did have some people that had some experience with prior transformations. We wanted to leverage them right off the bat, but we followed that up with putting key change leaders into very key positions. RTEs, portfolio managers. We trained some more SPECs and kind of rallied up the troops, around our change program. We started doing it to instill a passion for learning. People are going to adopt this stuff. They've got to be hungry to learn. They've got to really want to learn. They've got to embrace it. The product team started sharpening the SAW sessions that we were doing every quarter, always looking at kind of the next thing to improve, the next thing to learn, doing use cases better, doing, WSJF better, all of those good things. Trista started doing Agile learning labs with, her teams, over the infrastructure side, story point estimation, all of those good things.
We started from ground zero there. So
Yep.
we created the environment where it was okay for them to ask questions and to learn what we were trying to instill.
We built metrics dashboards very early. I'll talk a little bit about metrics later so you can kind of see where we started and what we did. And we got retrospectives going right off the ground. So we always had those feedback loops, built in. And another really good thing we think we did was by really looking at our processes and our adoption before buying tooling. A lot of groups go out there and they say, well, I got to have a tool, I got to have a tool to do this, I got to have a tool to do that. We said if we can't do it on paper, if we can't do it, with Post-it notes and string and all of that other stuff first, we don't know what kind of tool to buy. So we made sure we knew what we wanted to do and how we wanted to accomplish it before we bought our tooling. And also as part of kind of our slow roll is we kind of took the attitude of letting maturity and adoption of one set of principles create pull for the next level. So we didn't continuously ram it down there. We watched the teams, we worked with the teams, and as they started to hunger, or they started to realize there was probably more they hadn't seen yet, we came in with the next level of stuff. So we built it very incrementally that way. So how did we do all this? Well, we actually kind of started this whole thing off in October of 2017. That's when kind of the notion for a safe adoption was first floated. It was kind of on the tail end of the one that didn't go very well. So we jumped in right away with the mindset, the portfolio management, that type of thing, and by the following quarter, we actually had our Kanban in place. The product management team was doing quarterly release planning and roadmaps. Yes, those were Lean Agile 3, PI Outlook roadmaps. Nobody knew that, but that's what they were. And the quarterly release plan, yes, was a rudimentary PI plan. Not done the way PI planning is done, but the output looked very, very similar to what we get now out of PI planning. By May, we actually had our value stream stood up.
We did. We had value streams stood up, and then we had additional teams. So originally we had just dev teams and engineering that were Scrummish, and then we had infrastructure and operations that were flying by the seat of their pants on a day-to-day basis. So we stood up actual teams, put them on a cadence, and aligned it with the engineering dev Scrum team's cadence. And then in summer of 2018, we actually started those informal trainings. So that's the sharpening the saws, that's the Agile learning labs. We wanted to make sure that while we weren't exactly telling them everything that we were doing, we wanted to train them to build that mindset, to create that pull, to make sure that people were comfortable with what we were doing. We started throwing in some terms, because obviously we want people to understand the words that are coming out of our mouths when we talk. So those things started happening in the summer, and they continued, and they continue on today, to include cross-training. Engineering and our infrastructure and operations and security teams are actually cross-training now to better understand kind of where each other is coming from. In November of 2018, we got some trainings in. We have some SPCs, some RTEs. Then we did, between November and April, we did POPM. Jeff took the opportunity to train our product team. And then we launched in. We were ready to rip the Band-Aid off and actually do real PI planning.
We did the quick start. Quick start for our April.
Oh, we quick started it. We actually brought in a consultant, a known friend, colleague, to help us do the Safe for Teams. We got everyone in a room, did Safe for Teams. We felt it was good to bring someone that wasn't one of us to talk at the teams, versus we wanted someone that would actually talk to, that people would hear. Sometimes it's good to bring in that outside voice of reason. So in early April, we did Safe for Teams, and we did our first PI planning. And it went surprisingly well. Part of me expected a slow train wreck, but it actually went really well. And the teams immediately were putting Post-it notes. Mind you, we were using Post-it notes and whiteboards, and people thought we were a little crazy. We've got all this technology at hand. Why are we using Post-it notes? Because it worked. And it was glorious to see that first dependency get put up on our program board. It really let us know that we were going down the right path. And then late June, we did our second PI planning. And it went a little rougher, but we still got through. And that leads us into kind of where we're at now.
Yeah. Did ever people experience that? Did everyone find that their second PI planning was rougher than their first one? Yeah, you get a little bit of hubris right out of the first one. You think, I don't have to work so hard on the second one.
Well, they thought they knew.
Yeah, they did. That was fun. So why did this approach really work for us?
So it created a protective layer for the teams. That kind of sounds weird. It's like the umbrella, but it was really preventing the things getting lobbed over the fence at them. It created a priority list for them. It was really making sure that they understood what we were doing and what was expected versus just the chaos that was coming at them.
Yep. It also gave us an opportunity to really take a low-friction engagement with the business stakeholders. Remember, some of them had gotten soured on some of this stuff before. Some of them resisted that weird, geeky, techie stuff, you know? So this really, by taking this approach, we could really bring them in without them really knowing what they were being brought into, but they loved it. They loved the collaboration. They loved the involvement. They just didn't really know what they were getting involved in just yet. And in general, the velvet glove approach was good for us, where we could take this soft role and make people feel like that they were learning things, that they were engaging in things without having to be encumbered by, I mean, let's face it, the big picture's complicated, right? That thing's scary, especially if you show it to non-technical people. That freaks them out. The velvet glove approach, we could kind of start getting them involved in that without them even seeing that, which was good for us.
It was actually really good because once we did show them the big picture that some of us still get confused looking at upon occasion, you saw the light bulbs go off. You really did. People are like, oh, hey, I know what that is. I've done that. Just didn't know it was called that. And that reaction happened a lot. So that velvet glove approach really worked for us. And it allowed us to right-size the techniques. I mean, it really allowed us to kind of get a feel for what people were ready for. what changes they were prepared to take on, and let us really figure out if we wanted to run at it or if we kind of wanted to slowly crawl towards that approach.
And frankly, we're a
technique.
small enterprise, so we could take some of the more complicated techniques,
And
skinny them
scale
down a little.
Yeah. And we talked about tooling before, that we didn't want to just buy things to buy them because it was the coolest thing on the market at the time. We really wanted to be able to get tools that worked for us and worked with the way that we worked. But at the time, we didn't know how we were going to work, right? You can't just, oh, we think it's going to work this way. That never happens. It never goes according to plan. So taking this approach and doing it in an incremental way really allowed us to learn about ourselves and how we wanted to work. We had JIRA, the obligatory Scrum. We were working out of that, the teams were. But from a portfolio level, it really allowed us to figure out what we wanted. We were able to find a digital program board that actually works for us and a portfolio management tool. So taking this, it took us a while. We did a lot of investigating and a lot of, is this really what we need and what we want? But we got there. It took a lot of it.
And of course, like we said, we built the mindset along
There's
the way.
that word again, mindset.
Yep. We can build it slowly, we can build it up. We're fairly convinced at this point that no matter what happens, the organization will not go back to the way it was. They have taken ground. We have created a tipping point that we can continue to build on. So where are we now? Well, like Trista said, we have tooling now that works for us. It rocks our socks, actually. That actually came right out of a retrospective. You'll see it again in a minute. But I mean, we're not up here to endorse any specific tooling. If anyone wants to know what we chose and why we chose it, we can have a conversation offline. We are using metrics regularly in our management review meetings, in our corporate review meetings. The metrics that we're gathering out of this process actually get used. They get used in Inspect and Adapt, so they're real. And we are getting ready for our third PI planning, which is next week, actually.
You can imagine how stressful that is to be here with you guys, loving this, but man, we got that PI planning and Inspect and Adapt next week, so my side time's been trying to get that organized. But we're also, we have excitement and buy-in across most of the teams. People are actually asking for this. The business is coming to us asking for this. The teams are giving us really good feedback. You still have the occasional, why are we doing this? But we've come a long way there. We've got a dedicated commitment to ceremonies and cadence. That is like clockwork. We are on cadence. We have the meetings. We do the things that we should be doing when we should be doing them. Sprint goals. Most of our teams are doing sprint goals, but they're very much aligned with PI objectives. We talk about them in our art syncs, make sure we're on track there. And then we have cross-team collaboration. It comes in waves. Sometimes it's better than others, but it's there. It's better than it used to be. Some of those walls are now maybe like waist high versus all the way to the ceiling. Yeah. We're actually talking. We're having the conversations. We're thinking these things through before the last second.
Yeah. Still doesn't mean the occasional fecal matter asteroid doesn't come over in JIRA every now and then, but
yeah,
they're getting there.
So these are real comments, input from our Inspect and Adapts, our retrospectives from the PI planning. This really, when we first started PI planning, there was a lot of, why on earth do we need this? What are we doing? I'm sure none of you have ever heard that before.
It takes too long.
No one.
It costs too much.
It was, you want me to sit in a room for how many days with every single person? Like, I don't need that. No, we did. And once we got through it and they saw what we were doing, they saw all of the dependency sticky notes that were all over our program board, it really shed some light. So some of the feedback we've got, keep doing PI planning. Keep doing it. Heck yeah, we will. Continue as a whole. They think it's great. Literally, someone said, keep rocking our socks off. I can't make that up. That was real feedback. Continuing doing demos. We didn't really do a lot of demos where the whole organization saw it. It was kind of the people that needed to know knew, but we didn't really have a holistic view. So people were really excited to see the demos and the Inspect and Adapt. ArtSync was helpful, and I think it's continuing to be. And then continue leadership participation and support of the team process, which we're doing more of. We're getting that pull from the organization now to participate. So this was awesome to see, and we're continuing to get feedback like that.
So our metrics, let's see, so we basically started with what we consider to be operational metrics to help us understand, how we're performing, how we're doing, both in terms of agility and things. We focused on 3 primary areas: throughput, predictability, and quality. So really, from a throughput perspective, this was pretty much portfolio. We coined a term we called roadmap efficiency. We basically roll up the number of points that we've completed against our roadmap epics. So we can actually tell how much of our work is going towards the roadmap versus how much of our work is going into ad hoc requests or lower level requests. And of course, we track epic completion per product, because really when we do our planning, we do our commitment, we're looking at those epics, as part of our release plan. Predictability is all about say-do. For the most part, we track it at the value stream, product, and team level. Value stream and product, we roll up every month. Team, we roll up every sprint. And we look at that. We also look at sprint variance, how many tickets are getting changed or moving in and out of the sprint, for each sprint. So it tells us how stable, our sprint plans are. And of course, we do look at the team burn down for every sprint. And then quality is pretty standard. We're looking at resolution ratio, ins and outs, by product and by value stream. And we also track defect aging to make sure that there isn't a lot of, quality debt, building up in the backlog. So every now and then we go through and say, oh yeah, we're getting a little old back there, and a whole bunch get pulled out into a sprint to get taken care of. The next level for us here, you'll notice there's not a lot of tie into the business metrics yet. Our organization is going through kind of a process. We're adopting V2MOM. Who's heard of V2MOM, by the way? Nobody? Okay. It's a technique that was kind of pioneered by Salesforce. Essentially, think of it as a combination of vision, value, and OKRs on one piece of paper, by department. Think of it like that. So the KRs, become the business measures. And so now the next step for us is saying, okay, how do we start relating the things we do operationally to really turning the dials and the needles, on the business measure level? So that's up for us in 2020.
We're also looking at quality and kind of reevaluating how we actually measure that with some of our teams. Yep. So we've definitely got some room to grow still, and it's kind of exciting.
It is.
So obstacles and challenges, I will tell you, these are current obstacles and challenges, as well as ones that we were facing at the very implementation, the initial implementation. So these aren't things that we found the magical answer to. These are things that we're still working through. So our team makeup, it kind of encompasses team makeup, the fact that we have 4 or more time zones across the globe. I told you we've got Ukraine and Vietnam. It's really interesting to try to do PI planning with the time zones that drastically different. It's taken some inspecting and adapting and adjustments to get there. But our team makeup's been interesting. We've got systems teams, we've got shared resources that are also on their own teams, and then we've got various number of teams with people that sit on each team, right? So we could have one person that's serving 5 teams. So when we've done PI planning, it's been a challenge to make sure that each team gets enough of that person's time. We're also a little short on the product owner to team ratio right now, as well as Scrum Master to team ratio. So we've had to get a little creative with some of our scheduling. And we've tolerated some mismatches in ways of working. So that sounds worse than it is, because it's okay to not all work exactly the same way. Different teams are going to find what is going to work for them. But it gets a little complicated when you have so many people on so many different teams, or like, say I'm on 5 teams, each of my teams uses different story point estimations, or they use Jira differently. So we're running into that right now, where we've got a lot of cross-pollination between teams, and where us using those different processes and estimation techniques didn't used to be a problem when we were working in our silos. Now that we're all kind of collaborating, we're finding that it's creating some challenges.
We did actually have a perceived gap in business engagement that we're working on. Like we said, we worked with the business actually very closely throughout all this, but they didn't actually join the ceremonies until fairly recently. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the people that were involved at the team level and the program level kind of had this picture in their head that the business wasn't involved at all.
Oh, we got a lot of feedback about that.
We got a lot of feedback on that. So we had to actually kind of pull the curtains back and show them a little bit about how it was working. but we're still working through, now actual physical, business engagement, with the teams. And we're also working really hard to maintain alignment with change. As you saw at the very beginning, we're going through, as a family of companies, a large number of transformations ourselves. Like I said, for example, we're adopting V2 Mom. I mentioned that. Well, how does V2 Mom play into developing strategic themes and things like that at the portfolio level? So we have to continually figure out how to remarry a lot of the interfaces, the touch points, and the mechanisms we use to communicate with the business to align with changes in business processes on the other side. It keeps us very busy.
Mm-hmm. Yes, always busy. That's not a bad thing, though. We also have resistance to implementation. I think we always have resistance to implementation, no matter who we are, what company we work for. We can get everybody on board, but then one day they're going to go, wait, why are we doing this again? So we're facing that. I mean, the buzzwords were something that were a problem originally. We've kind of come over that hump. Now, Jeff's favorite term.
We found our permafrost.
So we've got some additional resistance that's coming up. We're about to go into our third PI planning, and we've got some of that questioning coming back up around. So hurdles that we've come over some of those hurdles, we're hitting some of them again, and we're working to kind of get past them again.
So go through this fairly quickly. We're getting a little short on time. So like we said, an emphasis on principles is essential for real lasting change. You got to create the tipping point. You got to get them to the point where there's no turning back.
If all teams are not on the same page, it creates friction. Again, we're never always going to be exactly on the exact same spot on the exact same page. But if we're at least somewhere on the same page, it really helps reduce the friction and create that understanding.
Yep. And like Dean said, PI planning without business owners is sad. We agreed. We probably waited a little too long, so don't wait as long as we did. So get them definitely involved in the process earlier rather than later, because at some point they're going to hear about it and go, why am I not involved in that? And then you have to have a conversation.
They were involved, but yeah.
They didn't know.
More consistent use of metrics and shared understanding of meaning. Metrics are very important. We probably don't use them enough. I know we are still working to figure out what metrics mean in some regards and how we want to share that, and what ones we're finding are more valuable to us. So definitely think that through. Make sure you have an understanding of what picture you want to paint, what story you're trying to tell with metrics.
Yep. And always follow through and follow up. Nothing
Always.
kills a retrospective like getting feedback and doing nothing with it. Nothing kills involvement in the process like taking action items and questions and never getting back to people. So if you take it, use it, and close the circle.
Yeah, I'm sure we are all familiar with the black hole of action items and follow. We also want to encourage people to say no, question why, and challenge each other. It's really hard to create that culture of it's okay to say no. It's okay to challenge. Why on earth are you doing that?
I don't know.
It's fine. Make sure that you guys instill that in people, that it's okay. Do it. Ask why. It's perfectly fine. We'd rather you ask why or say no than commit to something that you really can't achieve.
Yep. And it takes a village to do this.
Oh, does it?
One or two change agents can't do this. You have to become evangelists. You have to become missionaries. You have to go out there and recruit. You've got to get people behind you, above you, below you, and next to you. It takes a village to implement SAFE.
And always look for the next level. I mean, I think that's understandable. We always look to improve, always see what can we do next, what's going to be the next level for us to achieve.
Yep. And never lose your sense of humility, patience, and a sense of humor. Because there's always going to be something to laugh at, and there's always going to be something that makes you reset and say, I didn't know as much as I thought I did. I have to go back and try that again. So looking forward, like we said, we're going to do more business engagement in the PI planning event. We got a bunch of business owners coming next week. That's going to excite people. The next step after this is basically pushing this out to the organization. Get beyond IT. Help our provider networks understand how to use SAFE when they do their planning. Start to engage those organizations. And then, like we said, we're going to be continuing to blend, our existing business operational process with SAFE methods, annual planning, budgeting, V2 moms, other change management processes that we're doing.
We're going to try to unify our usage of tooling and estimation methods to help the teams that are working across multiple teams to better engage. We're going to use the metrics a little more rigorously and kind of help better define them. And then we're going to continue to inspect and adapt and adapt and adapt some more until we can adapt again.
Yep, and keep adapting.
Yeah.
Because like I say, that's where your humility and your patience come in. There's always a better way, and someone's always going to think of something you didn't. So be ready to just try new things all the time.
So we're running short on time, but this is what we told you.
What we told you.
We talked about our slowish roll to safe, our kind of phased approach, the importance of establishing that mindset again, and our vision for creating the pool. And
Yep, our correct thinking enables the sustainable adoption. Once again, it's that mindset word. Get people to make them always want more. You know, always get them to the point where they want more. Keep leading them along.
And ways you can do it, but do it better than us so that we can come listen to you guys talk and tell us how to improve ourselves next time.
Yeah. We want to hear you tell us how to do what we did better next year.
Yes, we do.
Out there and do it. So thank you very much. This is Trista.
They forgot our tip jar, and this is Jeff.
Yep. So like I say, don't applaud, just throw money. If they didn't have a tip jar. Remember, if you go ahead and rate the session, if you give anything less than 5 stars, we will send you a 120-question questionnaire so we can relentlessly improve. Okay? Well, just saying. Thank you very much for your time, everybody.
Yeah.